Welcome to another episode of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness with Dr. Dan Remley. Today he's going to be looking at the background of heart disease, and he's going to focus on some of the strategies to help strengthen your heart and your health. So stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness with Dr. Dan Remley. Dan is an associate professor with the Ohio State University Food, Nutrition, and Wellness program. And Dan, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me on again, Pat.
You know, I've learned a great deal about how to maintain a healthy mind, a healthy body, and it's all the different things that you have brought to the table here. And today we're going to be talking about something that I think is near and dear to all of us, and that's our heart.
Right. You mentioned mind and body; they're all related too. So our moods and how much we laugh, that also affects our heart and our cardiovascular system. So
that's true.
So it is March, and February is Heart Health Month, but so we're a little late, but it's still important. And so I want to talk a little bit about. I want to give credit to Lisa Barlage, my colleague up at Ross County, for developing this presentation. We'll talk about heart disease and things that we can do to prevent or delay heart disease, because as we get older, our risk for heart disease increases.
I know we've heard a lot about cardiovascular disease, and there's a lot of different things about just basic problems with the heart. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's a good question. So cardiovascular disease, it could include a heart attack, but it could also include stroke, or it could include like an aneurysm maybe in your intestine, or an embolism in your lungs. And so all of those conditions, can really damage our organs. Because what happens is you have a blockage and you have a part of your body, a part of one of your organs, whether it's the heart or the intestine or anywhere, your brain, that's deprived of oxygen. And so that the cells die and you have damage, potentially long-term damage or even death. And so we want to prevent those problems.
So what is arrhythmia?
Yeah, so arrhythmia is basically like if your heart is not beating correctly, then you can have an arrhythmia issue. So if you don't have that regular heartbeat, then that's arrhythmia. But it does include heart attacks, strokes, heart failure, and the arrhythmia, and then valve problems where you have a heart valve and it's too narrow and blood has trouble getting through that, or there's a structural problem in the valve. So those are some different types of heart disease. And I also want to point out that heart disease is not it can be a chronic condition. So you might have a heart attack, or you might not too. You might have a congestive heart failure, where it's more of like a chronic disease that has to be treated with diet, lifestyle changes, and medications too. So cardiovascular disease might kill you, but it just might make you chronically sick as well, and it has to be managed. So heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States, and around 350,000 people die each year from heart disease, and it costs the United States about $363 billion each year, so it's very costly. If you have a close family member, like a parent or even a grandparent that had heart disease at an early age, then you're definitely at risk. So there's a genetic component to this, but there's also a lifestyle component as well. And you probably have heard of a lot of these risk factors, but high blood pressure, high cholesterol, comorbidities such as diabetes, obesity, having an unhealthy diet, and then being physically inactive. And I've been on this show talking a lot about physical inactivity and how detrimental that can be to the cardiovascular system, especially long periods of sitting and not being not getting in the recommended amount of physical activity every week. And the real issue is that when we get older, our cardiovascular system ages and it becomes damaged, especially if we're exposed to chronic high blood sugar, for example, in the case of diabetes, or chronic high blood pressure, like if you have hypertension. That's very, very difficult on the cardiovascular system. Those arteries, those arterial walls. If you smoke too, you know, you're polluting your body, and you're also damaging those cell walls. High cholesterol, if you have a lot of fat in your blood, that can also damage those arterial cell walls. And so what happens is you have all this going on in your body, and that damages your cardiovascular system. It leads to plaque buildups, and during a plaque buildup, you almost have like your body tries to fix itself. So you have this inflammatory response. It's kind of like a chemical reaction that happens in your body. It involves things like platelets and cholesterol, and so you get these fatty deposits within your cardiovascular cell walls, and that leads to a plaque and potentially a blockage, and that's where you have a heart attack, or you have, you know, like an embolism or something like that, or a stroke, and that's when you run into problems. And so if we can keep our cholesterol down, we can keep our blood sugar down, we can have a good nutrient profile. You know, we're eating a healthy diet, potentially. Those are some things that we can do to, you know, lower our risk for these problems, these cardiovascular events.
You know, as we get older and wiser, we still get older. And, you know, let's face it, our body parts start wearing out.
Yeah.
And regardless of, to me, regardless of how much we are very careful, your body does wear out.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think the bottom line that you're trying to say is the quality of life is extremely important. Otherwise, if you don't take care of yourself now, not only will you live, but you will live very difficully.
Right. So you'll be on medicines and have to maybe have to go in for a surgery and that type of thing. So, yeah, it's all about quality of life. That's right. And having a high quality of life. And so that's why it's important to eat well and be active and take your medications and that type of thing. So heart disease, as I mentioned, it does run in families, and heart disease accounts for about a third of all deaths in the United States. And Ohio has the 13th highest rate of cardiovascular disease in the United States out of all 50 states. So we're very high here in Ohio in terms of our cardiovascular disease rates. And as I said, nutrition is really important in terms for preventing problems. And try to eat your fruits and vegetables. The dietary guidelines for Americans suggest that we should eat at least 2 cups of fruit and 2.5 cups of vegetables. And the reason why plant foods are so important is that they have a lot of vitamins and minerals that can help us lower our cholesterol levels, and can lower blood sugars. They can lower our blood pressure. And so for a mineral like potassium, for example, potassium is a mineral that's found in, if you think of mushy vegetables, kind of like potatoes, especially sweet potatoes, even white potatoes, but also peas and avocados, tomatoes. These are high sources of potassium. Actually, all fruits and vegetables have some potassium, but there are certain fruits and vegetables that have a little bit more than others. And so I like to think of those mushy ones. That bananas would be another example that are high in potassium. But potassium is really important because I don't know if you remember from biology class, potassium is an important mineral that helps our nervous system, and important for those electrical signals that happen between the neurons in our bodies. And so it's important for our heart because we talked about arrhythmia. It can help prevent arrhythmia, so it helps our heartbeat, the regular heartbeat. It's also important for our muscles. Our muscles need that potassium for contraction and that type of thing. But it's also thought to lower blood pressure as well, and helps that fluid balance in our body. Leafy green vegetables are also important, and they contain minerals such as vitamin K. Vitamin K is important for our arteries and promotes proper blood clotting and reduces blood pressure. So if you think of like spinach and kale, those are really important. And then tomatoes have lycopene, and lycopene is thought to reduce that inflammatory response that I talked about. And that's what we call a phytochemical that's found in tomatoes. So whole tomatoes, canned tomatoes, very, very important in our diets. So as I mentioned, potassium can also be found in fruits such as bananas and citrus fruits, raisins, apricots, melons. So most of us are actually deficient in potassium. And so, and that's why a lot of people do have problems with hypertension and high blood pressure, but also muscle issues, arrhythmias. So it's important to have enough potassium so you have, good heartbeats, you have your muscles work well, and you have, lower your blood pressure and that type of thing for fluid retention.
One of the things that we were discussing earlier, when it comes to certain fruits like grapefruit, it can be contraindicative to some medication that you're doing.
Yeah, statins,
And so it's, as you were...
Talk to your doctor about those issues.
Yes. Make sure that whatever medication that a person is on, that they look at what is best not to take, as you had mentioned.
Right. Well, and I think, too, just because you're healthy, it's important to get those tests, too. Know your cholesterol numbers, your LDL, your total cholesterol. Talk to your doctor, and get on a statin. Get on some medication if you have to lower your blood pressure or you have to, lower your cholesterol. Those medications are really important. I think a lot of people think that, well, I'm healthy, I feel okay. Why do I have to take medicine? Or why? It's just like vaccines, right? We take vaccines even though we're healthy. It helps prevent problems.
Right.
And so talk to your doctor about these things.
Right.
I mean, the diet's important, but if our blood cholesterol is down, we can't get it down through diet alone. And exercise and lifestyle changes. Those medications can be really helpful.
I understand.
For preventing problems. Berries are great because they also have potassium, but they have what we call phytochemicals in them, antioxidants, and that can help prevent that plaque buildup in our cardiovascular system. As I mentioned, it's that inflammatory response. And so berries, I think, are really those superfoods. They're kind of expensive, but you can get frozen berries. We grow them out back here. Gary has those berry workshops. I always come in and talk about the health benefits of berries, and there is a lot of health benefits. But think about color when it comes to your fruits and your vegetables. The more variety of color, eat a rainbow. That way you get the full complement of vitamins and minerals and even fiber. Fiber is another sort of a non-nutrient that can help lower cholesterol and lower blood sugar levels, helps with even blood pressure. And fruits and vegetables are very high in fiber too. Eat the skin. The skin is a great source of fiber. So when you're eating potato, don't forget about the skin. Or eating. There's two types of fiber. There's soluble and there's insoluble. But try to eat those whole fruits and vegetables. And even whole grains. Whole grains. We talk about whole grains. We're talking about whole grain wheat bread or oatmeal. And whole grains has also been shown to lower cholesterol and decrease our risk for heart disease.
I've seen where some individuals make smoothies. Is it just as good with smoothies, drinking fruits, as it is eating them raw?
It can be. The issue with smoothies is how you make them. If you add a lot of fruit juice and a lot of dairy, maybe like a high-fat yogurt, they can be very high in calories.
Oh, okay.
So, but if you just make them with raw fruits and vegetables, certainly that's a good way to get your fruits and vegetables in.
Okay.
So breakfast is a great opportunity to get your whole grains in, whole grain muffins and oatmeal and things like that. And you can also put fruit in your oatmeal. So it's a wonderful way to get your vitamins and nutrients and fiber. And also beans too. And we talk about legumes. Legumes are basically beans in pods. So like let's think about snap peas as an example, or green beans. But also like your kidney beans and things like that. So beans are wonderful protein sources, but they're also really high in fiber and also vitamins and minerals that we just talked about. So again, if you can get your beans in and actually have a meatless Monday, try to have a bean taco as opposed to just regular meat.
Now, is that encourage you to have more foods other than meat?
Yeah, I think beans can be a wonderful substitute for meats, and so if you can get them in that way, that's great. A lot of people do like a meatless Monday.
Certain groups in the United States think of a meatless, like Friday.
Yeah.
We should have fish.
Yeah, and fish is also really, really good for you too.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, try to work those plant proteins in if you can. Hummus, made from chickpeas. Again, you can put them on crackers and things like that, and that's a wonderful snack too. Or on pita bread. You mentioned fish. Fish is really important for our heart. It has what we call omega-3 fatty acids, and eating fish can decrease blood pressure and total cholesterol. And it also is thought to lower depression and protect even against like Alzheimer's disease. So we definitely need to eat much more fish. I think the recommendation is 6 ounces a week, serving a week,
wow.
I think. So a lot of nutritionists are really encouraging people to eat more fish. And that's tough for us here in the Midwest.
That is true.
So nuts and seeds also are very, very nutritious. Things like walnuts and almonds, pistachios, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, macadamia nuts, pecans, peanuts. They contain fiber, those omega-3, those healthy fats that we just talked about. But these are all shown to reduce LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, reduce the plaque buildups, and actually also decrease our blood pressures. And so a handful of nuts is thought to be a serving. So just keep that in mind. They are pretty high in calories, but they're pretty nutrient dense as well.
I know that we have salted nuts versus unsalted nuts. What's better?
Well, the unsalted nuts are much better.
Okay.
And if you like that salt, think about maybe there's ways that you can kind of spice up your nuts too. If you like the spiced nuts, you can add some chili pepper maybe, or even the sweet nuts, you can add a little bit of cinnamon. So there's different ways that you can prepare your nuts without the sodium.
I see.
And if you do have a problem with hypertension, definitely think about the unsalted nut options.
Okay.
I think the real issue in our country is that we're brought up eating out a lot, and restaurant foods is very high in sodium, for example. We're just used to sodium in our diets, and so it's hard when we have a problem like high blood pressure and our doctors say, Dan, you need to cut back on your dietary sodium. That's tough to do because a lot of the foods that we do eat are really, really high in sodium and salt. So, beverages are also very high in, they can be high in fat if you add cream to your coffee and that type of thing. So with our drinks, we want green tea and even coffees have lots of antioxidants, which can help that inflammatory process that I mentioned. So those can be healthy products for us to have, as long as we don't add a lot of sugar to them, or we don't add a lot of creamer and that type of thing. If you have a habit of going and buying coffee every day, and you buy a $1 beverage, whether it be from a coffee shop or a machine, that adds up. So if you spend $1 a day, that's $250 a year for these products. So water is one of the best choices. Stress. We know we've learned so much about stress in the past 30 or 40 years. I mean, we knew that type A personalities, for example, have a higher risk for heart disease, right? And so if we can reduce our stress, what happens when we're stressed is our body releases those fight or flight hormones, and that leads to those chemical reactions that could develop into a plaque formation and a blockage over time. Stress is really hard on our cardiovascular cardiovascular system. So there, it gets at that mind-body link again. So if we're chronically stressed, that's really hard on our heart and our cardiovascular system. And so thinking about ways that we can reduce our stress is very important throughout the day. So techniques such as practicing mindfulness. I think you've had some guests on in the show earlier. I know I've talked about mindfulness a little bit, but meditation, trying to slow down your breathing, just doing things that you enjoy every day. That's really important. Having hobbies, whatever they may be. Actually, laughter increases the blood flow to our brains and to various parts of our body. Gives our brain and heart more oxygen. So, and that can help with heart disease. And actually, research has shown that positive people have less heart attacks too. And so, trying to be positive, trying to be optimistic, really work on reducing your stress. And what about getting a good night's sleep? 7 to 8 hours. I probably got 6 hours last night. Sometimes it's hard to get 7 to 8 hours. But there are some strategies that we can try and use to get more sleep every night. And so having a routine, cutting down on the smartphones and tablets and devices right before we go to bed, avoiding spicy foods. So those when we have those devices, it emits those blue lights, or if you have the TV on, that's a blue light. That really can be disruptive towards our sleep. As can alcohol. Alcohol, having a nightcap can disrupt our sleep. Actually, having warm rooms. Did you know the ideal sleeping temperature is about 67, 68 degrees? So, having the right atmosphere is important when we sleep too. But when we don't get sleep, again, that's very hard on our hearts. And just think about when you're tired the next day. You feel like you're kind of labored, aren't you? You feel like your heart's beating harder to just keep you going. And sometimes you're relying on coffee to artificial stimulants and that type of thing. So get your sleep on a regular basis. And sleep, we know that sleep also lowers blood pressure and cholesterol levels and reduces stress. So can't say enough about getting enough sleep. And we talked a lot about salt, right? So when we have more salt, what happens is it draws out. We have a lot of salt floating around in our bloodstream. It actually draws more fluid out from our cells, and that's what leads to high blood pressure. So we want to make sure that we can cut down on our salt as much as we can. A lot of our processed food, especially restaurant food, will have salt. Read those labels. Anything that has 20% or more of the RDA sodium, that's a really high source of salt. Anything that has 5% of the RDA for sodium is a pretty low source of salt. And then physical activity, 150 minutes a day is recommended. It helps the heart pump more efficiently. It reduces stress. It lowers cholesterol, lowers blood pressure, all those things that we've talked about. Physical activity helps with those things. And then self-care. Talk to your general practitioner. Get those labs done, know your cholesterol levels, know your blood pressure. That's really, really important. And if your doctor wants you to take medicine, listen to them. They're the experts. I know some people say, well, I feel fine. I don't want to take medication. I don't want to put anything in my body that's foreign. But if you have a heart attack, you're going to be taking a lot of medications. Or if you have cardiovascular disease, you're going to be taking a lot of. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And then count your blessings too. We know that gratitude is really important in terms of our stress levels, and research shows that gratitude can make people happier, improve relationships, counteract depression, chronic anger, worry, and hostility. So, and all these things can prevent high blood pressure and heart disease. So that's about. That wraps up the slides that I have, and I know we kind of talked about a lot, but.
Well, one of the things that I like about the Ohio State University Extension, the Food, Nutrition, and Wellness, is the fact that anyone can give you a call.
Yes. Yep.
And talk. You're not a physician. You're not a.
I'm not a registered dietitian, so
right.
I can't prescribe a meal plan for you, but. when it comes to understanding sometimes complex information, that's what we do, and extensions help translate sometimes complex information so that you can apply this knowledge in your own life.
And you can also encourage more direct emphasis of where an individual can go if they want to be treated for that.
Sure. Yep. And refer people and that type of thing too.
Okay.
So, and we do have classes such as Dining with Diabetes that occur on a regular basis throughout the state.
I know that's been a very successful training program.
But it addresses many things we talked about today, and it shows people how to apply, and we do cooking demonstrations, healthy cooking demonstrations, and there's taste testing and that type of thing. So.
Hey, we're talking with Dr. Dan Remley. He's an associate professor with the Ohio State University Food, Nutrition, and Wellness Program. Dan, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.